Worker, but at that time they called them garbage men. So I'm a proud daughter of the garbage man. So when y'all read my memoirs, y'all will know. This represents what he took to work. These are both authentic, kind of great. And every day he would put his lunch in here, and he would either drink, just his coffee, because he didn't drink sodas. But he would take his coffee in there, and I didn't actually know that he still had it.
Coffee stay black, just like me. Don't need no sugar, don't need no cream. All right, what's up, family? Welcome to the Cxffeeblack podcast. It's your boy Bartholomew Jones, founder of Cxffeeblack. I am an MC, an educator, and a coffee nerd. This morning, I'm sipping on the 16th and Locust blend by my brother Steven Zinnerman and his wife. Their company, the Coffee Enthusiasts, super dope people. This is a blend of two Ethiopians, and I'm honored to be drinking it out of this absolutely beautiful mug by, oh man, that's good, Flight of Fancy, brother in Memphis, doing a really dope collab with Kenny Baker and Ethnos Coffee. You know those are our people, so please go check them out. And this is just black on both sides this morning. And I think it's appropriate that that's what we're drinking as we get into this week's episode. Really, 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 really beautiful set of portraits were taken about a year ago by Erin Kim. And just some background. She took these portraits, and I haven't released them because we just really wanted to have an experience with you guys and present these portraits in a way that they should be presented. So kind of some of the background is 2014, I met my wife. Well, actually, 2013, I met my wife. Amazing woman, amazing family. And I had the honor of marrying into her family, right? And as I got to know her family, her grandmother, her mother, one of the things that was taught to me was their history. And specifically that of Henry Vernon Martin being a sanitation worker in the 50s and 60s, and being someone who participated in the strike, the sanitation strike, that was so powerful that Dr. King decided to come and support what they were doing, support the protest they started. It turns out that he was an avid coffee drinker. Dr. King, yes, but also Henry Vernon Martin, the husband of my only living grandparent. Their grandmother is the only grandmother I had left. And in my family, we don't believe in in-laws. We just believe in families and extended families. And so, I learned about the history of Henry Vernon Martin participating in the sanitation worker strike and being someone who fought for his own liberation, the liberation of his neighbor, but also someone who did this while drinking coffee every morning and being the home barista and bringing even his children up in the process of enjoying coffee, and even had a very interesting process of preparing his coffee. And so we're going to get into that today. I'm going to get into the story behind his love for coffee and coffee's connection to our people's story. And it doesn't have anything to do with a scale. It's not about, the TDS. This story is about the deeper human connection to coffee that's there. So we're going to explore that today. I'm going to go over to my grandmother's house, try to record over there and speak with her and my mother, Mama Rogers, and talk to them about what their process was like for them, and the connections between coffee and the connections between those things, and maybe even have a little bit of something to eat in between. So y'all stay tuned. Keep that coffee black. So what I'm just gonna try to get it in how we live. You know what I mean?
There you go.
We at Grandma's house. So
Grammy,
yes, I just got a couple questions.
quiet.
Okay.
Maurice is going to be quiet because I need to record. You see the microphone?
He wanted to.
He did not.
Maurice, do you see the microphone in front of your face?
This is just like the show that you do on your PJMS radio.
It's not on my face.
I need to record.
Front of your face.
Everyone.
Don't
Okay.
touch it.
All right. Now, here we go. So, I wanted to record. Grandma, I wanted to ask you. I'm here with Mama B. And the people who are listening to the podcast have already heard some information about your husband and how he would drink coffee every day. I talked a little bit about the Black History of Coffee, but I wanted to talk to you about your experience. What are your thoughts about coffee? You know, what was coffee like for you growing up?
It was good.
Yeah?
Coffee was good, but I couldn't get in it.
Why not?
We wasn't allowed to drink coffee.
Why not?
We was children. Children weren't allowed to drink coffee.
Okay.
Back in my day.
Because you wasn't grown.
We wasn't grown. We had been grown to drink coffee without cream and sugar.
You just drank it black?
I drank it.
Grown up.
Growing up, I remember that. Because I never wanted to try yours. I always wanted to drink Granddaddy's because he had all the cream and sugar. It basically was just cream and sugar.
And there was, 9 children, and you said, what were our weekly expenses? Children were just hungry.
So y'all were just
and
hungry.
you just fed them.
So like, where did and the $6 a week or the $8 a week was paying for all of that, or this was before the strike?
Oh, well, I mean, I don't think we didn't eat no differently during the strike. I mean, we would just pour all the way through.
Right.
You know, and it was just like
it really wasn't a difference once y'all went on strike.
Well, when we went on strike, it was probably more community, and then you know what? It was community to begin with, because if Miss Elizabeth had made a big old pot of white beans, then it was on. We was.
Oh, by the way, we didn't introduce. So this is my mother-in-law. I just call her my mama. This is Sheila Rogers. You're not on camera, so you're good.
Hello.
Yes, but that's who's been speaking for a minute. And so, like, you're just describing what that process was like. So for you all, there really wasn't a difference pre or post strike.
Not in terms of how we ate. Of course, we were in survivalist mode. Probably just her income supplementing what he wasn't making during that time. And then like I said, community.
That's just a crazy supplement, like from going from 63 to 8.
Oh yeah.
Or 63 every 2 weeks, which half of that would be what, $31.
$31.
So going from $31 plus the $8 that Grandma was already making, so that's basically $40 a week down to $8 a week. Like that's a big difference.
You didn't look at things in terms of how much money you were making then. You just looked at things in terms of if you could pay your bill.
8 o'clock.
So you would be at home, you would make your coffee before you went out to go work. And then
Make who's gone?
your coffee. Or your husband would make coffee. So he made all the coffee in the house. He was the barista at the house.
He was the coffee man.
He was the coffee man. So he made the coffee before you left. And it's crazy, Grandma, because what I found out in our company is that coffee comes from Africa. Like, it was discovered in Africa. And white people stole it. And then they made people all around the world in Colombia and Indonesia. No, Maurice. Not right now. They made people all around the world grow it. So they stole the seeds from Africa and they made all these people grow it. So it's crazy to me to think that in the morning, your husband is creating coffee, brewing it for his family, this thing that comes from Africa, just like we all come from Africa. And then those people who you went to work for probably had coffee in the morning too, right? And that also comes from Africa. And so they're drinking this African beverage, but then you show up at their house after drinking the exact same beverage and they spray you before you come in. Like, that's crazy to me. Like, just the dissonance between they can take all this time to brew their favorite coffee that comes from Africa, but then when a person from Africa show up at their door, they gotta spray you before you get it. Like, what she's
Before I come in the house and clean her house up, sweep up, mop, clean the bathrooms and everything else.
Now let me ask you another question. Was their house dirty? Were they nasty?
Yeah, they were nasty.
Okay, cool. So we have had some food. Had the
power go out on us, so we're back to do the last part of this interview. And so I'm sitting here with my mother-in-law, Sheila Rogers. Sheila Martin Rogers. And yeah, we just wanted to finish talking about, like, kind of the last thing that Grandma had said was just that, you know, she had brought up this whole idea of, you know, her and Granddad having this ritual around coffee every morning, which is just a powerful thing. You know, I've speculated. We're outside right now, so if you hear noises and stuff, we're literally at Grandma's house. So, you know, about just like why even among Black people there is this connection to coffee, and it's not necessarily the, you know, super nerdy, ain't no scales involved. It's not, you know, but there's just this connection in Black families around coffee, and the idea of you not being old enough and it being kind of like a rite of passage to be able to drink it. So, you know, why is that? You know, I don't know if you have any insight as to why you think that is. Would it have been the same thing with tea, or is there something about coffee that you think brings people together, Mom?
Well, traditionally, coffee has been like one of the things. Well, as I grew up, that my mom and dad did every morning. It's like you wake up, you get your shower, and you go to the kitchen and you put the coffee on. You know, whether it was out of a pot, regular boiling pot, percolator. Way back in our days, we didn't have percolators. Well, we had a percolator on that you could put on the stove.
Yeah, that's what my grandma had.
Yeah.
It kind of looked like a mocha pot.
Yeah, I guess so. I don't know what a mocha pot looks like.
One of them boost things.
But ours was mostly out of a regular boiling pot that you put rice. You either had a choice, you put rice or coffee.
Whoa, hold on, break. So y'all would make? I gotta try it. So a lot of people call that cowboy coffee too, where it's like you just get a pot, you put the coffee in there, the water in there, and then you pour it through some type of filter. Yeah. What kind of filter did y'all use? I'm sorry, I'm getting nerdy.
We just used what they call a strainer back then.
That makes sense.
You with the strainer, you strain more than coffee. You strain all kinds of stuff.
So, could I get nerdy and ask what? Director, hey, my wife's a director. She said stop. We're gonna stop. So, can I get nerdy and ask what brew ratios y'all use? Like how much water versus coffee did y'all use? Volumetric, like y'all used like scoops of tablespoons versus cups of water. I use
straight serious right now.
I had to try. I had to ask. Okay.
The volume was whatever was in the coffee, whatever coffee you had.
But look, it sounds like Grandpa had something that was special to the way he made his coffee, because he was making coffee for everybody. So he had to have...
not everybody. One but two grown folk in the house.
But I'm saying he's making coffee
for him and his wife, the two adults that could drink coffee.
Yes.
In the house.
But so there has to be something specific he's doing if he's doing it every day. Like, I don't think he's just getting in there throwing whatever's in there.
Oh no, my dad was very selective with.
If it's anything like his barbecue, and the way Uncle Henry Lewis has been just telling me, Henry Jr. has been telling me, like, the specificity to the dry rub and everything, you know what I mean? Like,
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, you have to know.
If his coffee was anything like that, then he had a rhyme or reason.
Anybody can put heat to the meat, but it takes a very select few who know how to barbecue.
Come on now, bars. Okay, look. So
the same thing went with coffee.
Yes.
You could use Folgers, you could use Maxwell House. You could use whatever kind you wanted to use, but it was all about knowing, like you said, taking the volumetrics and putting them together with the ratio of the water to
it's just having some sauce. You just gotta have some sauce the way you do it.
And my dad had sauce about everything he did.
Yes.
Okay.
He had the sauce.
And he would get up and he would make the coffee, and he and his wife would sit there and they would plan their day.
Hey, Grandma, coming up.
And mom had traded the chair. No, trade his chair. And he and his wife would sit and let. Freeman, don't. Hold on.
Hey, Maurice, hold the door for Grandma.
That'll be more helpful.
Hold the door.
Just come around, hold the door for you.
Yeah, hold it,
Stand
son.
there in front of me.
Hold it.
Come here, hold it, buddy.
Hold the door so come on.
And as he was making the coffee, they planned their day.
Yeah.
You know, not in terms of, you know, it was like they would communicate with each other about how things were going to be going that day.
Yeah.
Who was going to take care of what chore? Who was going, you know. She let him know whatever was going on, like with the school. Who was in trouble? Who wasn't in trouble?
Yeah. Yeah.
Who needed to
Were
talk
you ever
to
in
the
trouble?
principal? Who, me?
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Okay, but
There was one time when I had my human, constitutional, and civil rights all violated at one time by my school principal,
Right.
who told me I could not wear an afro.
Wow.
So what I did was organized several ladies in my group, in my classroom, and told them all, we're wearing a afro tomorrow because he told us we couldn't.
That's crazy. What school is this at?
Okay, yeah, over in North Memphis.
Okay. That's crazy. But North Memphis is a black neighborhood. Was
And
the
this
principal
was a black principal.
Yo,
We
that's
were all
crazy.
black. And this was during that time of all the unrest. Well, kind of a little bit after 6 days. But we all got together. But then what he made the mistake is, he said there was only one girl in the entire school that could wear an afro. Now, had he said that I couldn't wear an afro and that was across the board, I would have left it alone. I wouldn't have got my posse. I got my posse together. We all wore afro. I looked crazy.
Yeah.
He sent me home in a police car.
Wow. For wearing an afro. So that's where your daughter get it from. Because when we started dating, she was trying to go at a police officer's head because he didn't stop somebody from almost hitting us. And I was like, baby, you both black. We gonna. But she wasn't going though. So I see where she gets it from.
Okay.
So so I guess for me, where we had kind of stopped last time was we were talking about, you know, just like the interestingness of coffee being this black thing, which some people didn't know that at the time. But there's an interesting Martin Luther King quote about coffee coming from all these different places around the world. And so in some ways we're having a global experience just by, you know, eating our breakfast, because he's talking about where the different foods come from. I don't remember if he said it came from Africa, and I think he said Colombia or South and Central America. But coffee got to South and Central America after it was stolen in 1616 from Africa, and then it's taken to Indonesia by the Dutch and grown there in a place called Java, which is why coffee is called Java, right? Because that was the first place where they had coffee plantations.
Okay.
They would make it was literally a plantation. Like they would make the people there who lived on that part of the island pick it, and so then it got taken from there. Some other European countries took it from there and moved it to Central and South America when they conquered that part. But the Martin Luther King quote is, "We do not finish breakfast without being dependent on more than half of the world. At the table we drink coffee produced for us by South America," and we can say Africa now that we know that history, "or tea by the Chinese, or cocoa by a West African. Before we leave for our jobs, we're beholden to more than half of the world." So I think that quote for me is interesting because that was happening
At the time.
but then you had these black people who come from other parts of the world, and we know the same part where coffee comes from, and they're being mistreated here, even here in Memphis, Tennessee. Like the grandma's having these experiences with people spraying her, and obviously granddaddy is out here fighting for his rights, which is still crazy just saying that. Like I feel honored to even have married into that legacy. That he's doing this, right? He's literally doing something that made Dr. King come down and join what they were doing. So like, but they're having these experiences where people were ignoring them, and I guess for me, like, did y'all ever feel that tension of, man, this is weird? Like, people love all this black stuff or this stuff, even if it's not coffee. It's like our culture. They love our music, they love our style, they love our words, but they don't love us. You know, did y'all ever feel that tension?
Oh, we felt that all the time, and we always thought it was funny. It's like, okay, but you don't like us, but you want to be us.
Yeah.
You know, one of the things I think that was the most prevalent back then was people want to get tans, and it's like you want to be our color, but you don't want to accept us, or to recognize the contributions that we made as black people.
Yeah.
Like I was saying earlier, yeah, all of that was being said about where coffee. I mean, you never put the rebel.
Oh yeah, say what you were saying about Tarzan.
Oh yeah, like the Tarzan thing. You know, the only thing that we found, that we saw, were the images on TV, and the images on TV always portrayed black people as the enemy.
Right.
Even though we were black, we didn't have that connection
Yeah.
with
Wow.
where we had come from.
So of course, if you can't make that connection between yourself and Africa, it's going to be even more difficult to make a connection between the practices, the culture, the cuisine you have
Right.
in Africa, and seeing how those things also may be influenced by, you know, some of the culture that we brought over here with us.
Well, and I think that probably the whole coffee thing was a part of the slave, the whole slave type trade and what went on plantations, because there were a lot of, I think that probably that transferred over to like my mom's generation when she was growing up, because she was just like one step away from slavery.
Yeah.
If truth be told, they were excuse me, called sharecroppers. They were pretty much slaves because they work all year and did not get any money.
And you didn't get paid.
Right. And so a part of that tradition as well was that when you got up in the morning, the older people, I mean, that was their way of communication. That was their way of connection.
Yeah.
That was their way of saying, hey, we're breaking our fast. Come on, let's start today.
That's so powerful because so I did this interview with this brother from the Oromo people, who are the people group who discovered coffee in Ethiopia, and they're currently protesting right now because one of their civil rights leaders just got assassinated. And so they're protesting all over the country, all over the world. So power to the Oromo people. But he was saying for the Oromo people, when they discovered coffee for them was not just like this, oh, let me get my half calf, no calf, decaf. It wasn't this me, mine, just me by myself. It was a communal experience where they would make the coffee. They would roast the coffee there in the morning like the women would, and roast it. They would brew it, and then they would serve it, and they would do that 3 times a day, like a meal. You know what I mean? And so I think it's just crazy to think about, like, he specifically said it's a way to connect with yourself, with your community, with nature, with God, and with each other, you know. And I think that's just powerful.
I mean, I don't know that we went as deep as thinking about connecting with God with the coffee, but there was definitely a connection with God as a community and as a family, you know. And regardless to what you had to do during that day, the one thing that you did that morning was you got up and my mom and dad, they communed together over this cup of coffee. And then they went on to their separate ways. And it was always a joke because we always wanted coffee. And the one thing that they would always say, you can't have no coffee because coffee make you black.
Isn't that funny?
Well, and it's like,
funny?
Aren't we black already?
Hey.
But at that time,
you might get too black. You might get too connected.
Well, no.
You might hold up. You might get too woke.
But at the time, it wasn't about wokeness. At the time, it was about black people still, to me, still not understanding who they were in terms of the hue of their skin.
But
it was
that
like
funny?
double entendres.
Because if they had known, like, the drink itself is black, as in it's ours, as in, like, you know what I mean? Like,
but I don't know that would have made a difference. I think that culture we were in, that time frame we were in, we still didn't connect to our black skin being beautiful. I got all the time. I got people just barraging me with all kinds of negativity about my skin color because I was light. I didn't see myself as light though. And I think that's one of the reasons why I was so woke at 8 years old. You know, pig go home. You know, those are the kind of things I was saying when we were during the strike era. But what our parents would let us do, you always had a saucer. I mean, you had a little cup. You had like the China cup with the saucer. And what they would let us do is, upon stirring, you know, you always waste a little coffee. And if you got a saucer, you're going to have some. So we were sitting around like, oh, yeah. We going to get a little bit of that coffee because they will let us slurp it out of the saucer. But I never wanted my mama's coffee. It was black.
It was black. Blackity black.
I always wanted that is with the sugar and cream.
I guess the last question I have, thank y'all so much. Thank you, Grandma, for letting me come and talk to you about coffee and Granddaddy and, you know, your history and our history. Thank you, Mom, for your time and just elucidating so many things. The last thing I guess I had a question about was, you know, since I've gotten more into coffee and I've seen like, man, what coffee can do for our community. You know, by the way, Mama Rogers, my mother-in-law, but I don't believe in in-laws. It's just my mom. She's actually taking over a lot of our product fulfillment. So I think it's just cool even seeing how like more people in our community are able to financially get something because of us reconnecting with coffee. Like I think that's been a blessing. I hope I'm running this thing right. But I noticed that, you know, and I don't know if y'all ever noticed this, but at the Lorraine Hotel where Dr. King was assassinated, there is a coffee shop. There's a neon sign that says coffee shop right over there on the side. And, you know, Dr. King has that famous quote about coffee that we read earlier. I always wonder, like, if he ever went there, you know, and if that hotel was active and if anybody else that was in the city ever went to that coffee shop, what the coffee shop was called, and like if those people knew the Black history of
I don't
coffee, or
even
if
know.
there was a connection.
Could Black people go to Lorraine then down in that coffee shop?
Oh,
I don't know that. We need to explore that a little bit further because I know that there were certain hotels that, and the reason why he was at Lorraine, most times when he came here, he had to stay with. Most people had to stay with other host families because.
And King was at a different hotel, and he got moved to the Lorraine.
Right.
I know that's a big part of the conspiracy theory, right?
Okay,
is that they moved him to
But
that.
I know that they said that most times when they were there in whatever hotel, they would always, because of the safety factor, they would order room service.
Okay, yeah.
And if you see in the room, you see that coffee was one of the last things that he had on the meal. They had a meal that's still there. It's a representative meal.
Right.
That they had just finished. Well, at some point, because they were supposed to be going to dinner, which kind of makes me feel like all of that was kind of mixed up somewhere. But I don't know, because there were so many coffee shops here in the South that blacks couldn't go to.
Yeah.
Gerber was one. Woolworth, which is like maybe 3 blocks from there, is another. But that was also the first sit-in that they had in the city, where young black college students went and sat down and got spat upon and abused and all the above, were sitting down wanting a cup of coffee and not being able to get it.
And I think that was one of the things that they had to even practice, right? Was practicing getting hot coffee thrown on you, right? And being, was it a 2nd-degree burn?
Mm-hmm.
Like you had
Well, not only that, but you had to practice mentally to take, even if they didn't throw coffee or throw things, which they did all of the above, the first thing you had to do was mentally prepare yourself to be abused verbally. Because that was how they started. They started off with the words, the N words, and the all kinds of words that they called black people at that time.
Yeah. And
so there were several places in Memphis, coffee shops being among them, that were used for sit-ins, peaceful sit-ins.
Wow. And I think for me, these are the things in the coffee stories. Like this whole episode is really dedicated to the coffee stories, the black coffee stories that we don't hear. I think in like, the kind of bougie coffee world, third wave coffee, there's a conversation about the negative experiences that black people have in coffee shops today, or how coffee shops can participate or help to support the greater fight for black liberation, and then and what we've had, and all those are important conversations. I think we were just on the podcast, Renata was talking on the Boss Barista podcast interview that we did, about her negative experience as a black woman going into coffee shops and how people ignore her or assume she's going to be negative or she's going to be angry just because she's black and they don't know how to deal with black women. So all they have is stereotypes. So I think those are important conversations, and we've been talking about the historical, like, coffee stolen in 1616, then in the 1690s coffee starts getting grown in Indonesia, which we're going to talk about that more in the next episode, kind of like the transmission of coffee into Central and South America and the Caribbean. But I wanted to talk about specifically with these photos that Aaron came and took of Granddaddy's thermos, right? And the actual vessel that he took the rest of the coffee that he would brew in the morning for Grandma. He took that with him to go march with Dr. King. He took that with him to go fight for equality. He took that with him to go provide for his family.
Right.
He took that with him, to do these historic things. Like coffee was the thing that he was imbibing, and that was literally motivating him to fight for his own freedom, even on a chemical level. I think those stories don't get told. They're not appreciated. They're not valued because they don't involve a scale or a big fancy burr grinder, or because, they don't really involve white people. To be honest, a lot of them are things that happen in our homes. Like as you talked about it, it reminded me of my grandma, my dad's mom, Mama Jessie, and how she would make coffee every morning, her and Daddy Clarence. And like, even thinking about the sharecropping, like Daddy Clarence's father, who I'm named after, Alexander, he was able to escape sharecropping and get 9 acres of land at that time, and then have other people be able to rent land from him. And that's one of the big motivations for me wanting to get into business is like, if we can get something ourselves, like my great grandfather was able to, like your father was able to, you know what I mean? Like able to get something where you can start fighting for something ourselves, then we can do so much more for our people, and we don't have to wait around. And
we can be an example to our people, saying to them, "Hey, you can do just like we can do this together."
We don't need their permission, and
we don't need anybody's permission, not necessarily there. I think the one thing that our focus was, which my dad was about, it's about togetherness, period. We're fighting a war, but we're not necessarily fighting against we as opposed to we and them. Because even in the midst, you asked me earlier, how did we eat? We ate what we had. We had community. And if you needed coffee, somebody borrowed you coffee, they sent you some. You didn't have any coffee in the house. But like when the riots came and the looting came, our dad lined us up on the porch, and he showed us down there where they were looting. They had grocery baskets going into this man's store and stealing out of his store, and he wasn't our color. Of course, because systematic racism is such that we, at that time, well, even at this time, we don't own our own. We're buying from somebody else. But he still told us the one thing he wanted us to know: this is not the way. That's not the way to do it. We're going to eat, but we're not going to take from the man who has to give us credit when I don't have money. That's one of the things. One of the ways we ate was if Daddy didn't have money, he'd go down there, and I mean it wasn't no interest charged. I mean the man just gave him food, and he knew that he was gonna pay for it.
And I think that's what allyship looks like. A lot of people ask us, like, this is my least favorite question I get asked. You said the phone's ringing, Grandma? This is one of my least favorite questions I get asked. Like, what can we do to, what can the coffee industry do? And I think, how can we do for black people? And I think for me, the idea of somebody doing something for me, maybe it's just my pride. Is I don't need nothing. But I think about my great grandfather, and what he was able to accomplish. I think about Vernon Martin and what he was able to accomplish. Henry Martin. I think about Henry Vernon Martin, and what he was able to accomplish. Doing something so great that Dr. King had to come down to see what was going on.
But the thing of it is, we always need somebody. We always have to have that help, though. Because even though you knew Alexander, Alexander had it, I'm sure there was someone. We have to always reach back.
Hat is on.
Just one.
Cat in the Hat is on.
Yes. Okay, here it comes.
Okay, we're doing the interview right now. For me, see the microphone.
Oh, okay.
And you're right. I think that's to me what allyship looks like. It's like being able to help people.
What is allyship?
Allyship just means like being a friend in the midst of somebody's trouble.
Ally.
Yeah, being a white ally specifically. I like to focus on what we can do for ourselves, but I think
there's nothing wrong with wanting to do for yourself. But I think that coming from a Christian's perspective, I know that eventually, and even in the the strides that we made in the 60s, in the civil rights era. That wasn't done only by black people. If white people had not turned around to help
Yeah.
those that walk right beside Martin Luther King, you look at the footage. There's some there, and don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to glorify anything or anybody.
But it's real though.
But it takes all of us.
Yep.
It takes all of us to make things different. If they ask you what we need you to do, we need your coins, brother.
And I said, I tell her buy a shirt.
Coins.
And then,
Coins.
you know, I think
Shop
for
black,
me,
you
I
know?
think for me too is like the thing that I think about is like, man, engage with the black people in your community. Go to black churches, attend, become a member, go to black schools, volunteer your time. Go to the black community centers and see, like, it's not about getting people into your business necessarily and making more money from black consumers. It's about becoming a more connected human. It's about becoming a more connected human being.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And like connecting with black people as humans and not as these charity cases, but also not as monsters from Africa who need to be. Those are both extremes. You know, just connect with us as real people.
Right.
You know.
Well, so to me, I think that the way that you can achieve that is just to have that one-on-one and say, "Hey, how can you help? Hey, let's sit down and let's talk."
And maybe you could do it over a cup of coffee.
Right.
Welcome back to the end of this very, very special episode of the Cxffeeblack podcast, where we take a look at some of the lesser known and lesser celebrated black coffee stories. You know, we say all the time that black coffee is black history. Right now, in our world, we have Oromo protests. The Oromo people are protesting the assassination of one of their most beloved activists, musicians, community leaders, the people who discovered, you know, this fruit that's enjoyed all over the world, are not just drinking it and pontificating endlessly about the TDS of the beverage. They are fighting for liberation, and this fruit is connected to that fight. And we see that that's not just true for the original black people who discovered this thing. It's true for many black people and many brown people and many people who are just people period who are connected to this beverage. You know, it's known historically that coffee has always been connected to a revolution, and I think that in the black community we see that no more clearly than the coffee shop at the Lorraine Hotel, the place where Dr. King was assassinated, the same place where Dr. King moved into a room all the way down from higher up in the United States because another black man, another black family, another black woman, more black children were having an experience with coffee daily, and yet finding that their blackness was not acceptable in the society that so desperately craved the beverage from their homeland. And so this has been a peek into the story of something that now we have the privilege in our family to call a part of our legacy, and to try to continue through our company and through what we want to provide. And this, our story is not unique. There's so many stories and families who have had valuable, powerful experiences, human experiences with coffee that are not limited to a pour overs filter. You can't strain these notes out. You know what I mean? These are human elements here that have to be observed, respected, and learned from. And so I think it's a powerful moment. One of the things as we close about the sanitation workers strike in the United States, specifically in Memphis, Tennessee, is that a big reason for the strike was because they were denied the right to form a union. And right now I just want to shout out to the Augie's Coffee Union, a group of individuals were seeking to get the same type of protection that Henry Vernon Martin was seeking. That Echo Cole and Robert Walker were seeking, the two black men who were crushed to death in the back of a trash compactor because they weren't allowed to ride inside the garbage truck when it was raining because they were black. The same reason that women sprayed my grandmother when she went to clean a nasty house. Probably after drinking coffee from the same place that she was. Augie's Union is seeking to form, the Augie's Coffee family is seeking to form a union, and it seems that they were terminated because of their pursuits. And yet they are still fighting, and I just want to shout them out because I think each of us have to find ways in our own communities to pursue God's notes for our lives and seek ways to remove the sugar and cream that people are going to try to place onto us, the preferences, the palettes that are going to be placed onto, our purpose. We got to remove those. We got to get back to what the Creator intended, to what Yahweh intended for us as people. And, we hope this podcast and this coffee, Gucci Mane Coffee, whether it be apparel or music or inspirational picture, something can encourage you to go pursue that for yourself, much like our ancestors before have done. And so we thank you for your time. We appreciate you. We love you. And as always, keep that coffee black.
Coffee stay black just like me. Don't need no sugar, don't need no cream. Coffee stay black just like me.